My name was written 3 times on the page. That was the first thing I noticed, not the date at the top, not the neat blue ink, not the fact that I never should have been looking at it in the first place. Just my name, 3 times. And the worst part was, I hadn't gone looking for it. Her journal was on the couch because her dog had knocked it there. That sounds like a weak defense, but it happens to be true. Her name was Claire, and on Sunday afternoons I was usually in one of 2 places: my apartment, pretending to clean, or hers, actually doing whatever ridiculous task she had talked me into helping with. That day, it had been reorganizing her living room because, according to Claire, her shelves looked emotionally cluttered. I told her shelves did not have emotions. She told me neither did I, and yet somehow I still made everything harder than it needed to be. That was Claire. Warm when nobody was looking, sharp when they were, the kind of woman who could say something devastatingly accurate without ever raising her voice. We'd been best friends for a little over 5 years, long enough that she no longer asked before stealing fries off my plate, long enough that I knew exactly how she took her coffee, and exactly what kind of silence meant she was upset. Long enough that people had been making the same joke about us for years: cashiers, coworkers, her brother, my sister, the old woman downstairs who once saw us carrying groceries upstairs together and smiled like she had solved a puzzle before either of us had. "You two are wasting time," she'd said. Claire laughed. I did too. Then we went upstairs and didn't talk about it, which had become a habit. Maybe because habits are safer than questions. We met in the least romantic way possible. I was in line at a campus coffee cart, dropped my wallet, and when I bent to pick it up, the guy behind me stepped right over it and ordered like nothing had happened. Claire, who was behind him, said, "Wow, you seem awful," loud enough for everyone to hear. He turned around. She smiled. He left. I laughed so hard I bought her coffee, and somehow she stayed in my life after that. After college, everyone expected our friendship to thin out the way most people's do. It didn't. If anything, it got worse. She called me when her sink leaked. I called her when my landlord sent emails that sounded legally threatening. She knew the code to my building. I knew where she hid the spare key under the little ceramic planter by her door, even though she kept insisting that was temporary and not a real hiding place. It was the easiest thing in my life, which was probably why I never pushed at it. If I had to be honest, I'd say there were years where I came dangerously close to asking myself why nobody I dated ever felt as natural as Claire did. Then I'd get smart and stop thinking. That Sunday, we were halfway through moving stacks of books from one wall to another when her dog, Basil, decided the entire project was beneath him and leaped onto the couch with muddy paws from the balcony. Claire pointed at him. "Absolutely not." Basil ignored her. Then her phone buzzed from the bathroom and she groaned. "Can you stop him from destroying something while I take this?" "Depends what's at risk." "My sanity." "That's already gone." She gave me a look, and then disappeared down the hall with her phone pressed to her ear. Basil spun once on the couch, stepped directly onto a cream blanket, and knocked a leather journal onto the cushion beside him. I reached for it on instinct before he could plant a paw on it too. And that should have been the end of it. Except it had fallen open. And right there, not hidden in the middle of a paragraph, not buried 5 pages down where I would have had to snoop to find it, was one line written a little darker than the rest. "I am so tired of pretending Noah is just my best friend." I froze. Actually froze. Basil snorted and flopped onto the blanket beside me like none of this concerned him. Claire's voice drifted faintly from the hallway, still talking on the phone, still completely unaware that my entire internal life had just split in half on her couch. I should have closed it. I know I should have. Instead, my eyes dropped. Just once. Just enough to catch the next line. "He looks at me like I'm home and still has no idea what that does to me." There are moments when your brain doesn't do anything useful. That was one of them. Because suddenly, everything I had filed under friendship started moving. The way she always found one last reason for me to stay. The way she went quiet whenever I mentioned another girl. The way her face changed whenever someone joked about us, like she was trying very hard not to react in the wrong direction. And worst of all, the way the line felt less shocking than it should have. because some part of me had always known there was something here. I'd just been too careful to name it. "Hey," Claire called from the hall. I looked up so fast I nearly dropped the journal. She was coming back now, phone in hand, expression distracted for exactly 1 second, until she saw me holding it. Then she stopped. Not dramatically, just completely. Her eyes moved from my face to the open page, then back to my face. And in that tiny, horrible silence, she knew. Not just that I had the journal, that I had seen the line. Her voice, when it came, was quiet enough to make it worse. "Noah." I stood there with her dog at my feet, her journal in my hands, and no safe lie left in the room. The look on her face made lying pointless. Not because Claire was angry, because she was embarrassed in a way I had never seen on her before, and that somehow felt worse. I closed the journal immediately and set it on the coffee table like maybe that could undo the last 10 seconds. Claire," I said. She stayed in the hallway for a beat, phone still in her hand, then came the rest of the way into the living room and put it down on the shelf without taking her eyes off me. "You read it." It wasn't an accusation. That would have been easier. "I didn't mean to," I said. "Basil knocked it open." Her dog lifted his head at the sound of his name, decided none of this required his involvement, and went back to doing absolutely nothing. Claire folded her arms. "That is such a terrible defense." "I know." She looked down at the journal, then at me again. "How much?" "2 lines." That answer mattered to her, I could tell. Her shoulders loosened just a little. Then she let out one quiet breath and said, "That's still 2 lines too many." "I know," I said again, softer this time. The room went still after that. Rain tapped lightly against the balcony door. The lamp in the corner threw that warm yellow light she always preferred over the overhead one. Everything looked exactly the same as it had 20 minutes ago. Nothing felt the same. Claire glanced toward the kitchen like she was considering escape. Then she looked back at me and said, "You should probably say something." "You want the truth?" Her laugh was short and nervous. "Given the circumstances, that feels fair." I rubbed a hand over the back of my neck, trying to find a version of this that didn't sound too late. "I think the worst part is," I said, "I wasn't as surprised as I should have been." Claire's expression changed. Not softer exactly. More careful. "What does that mean?" "It means those lines didn't feel impossible, just obvious in a way I should have figured out sooner." She stared at me for a second. "Noah, that is not a normal response to accidentally reading your best friend's emotional collapse." Despite everything, I smiled. That wasn't emotional collapse. It was journal honesty, which is worse. Fair. That got the faintest twitch at the corner of her mouth, but it disappeared quickly. I took a step closer. "Can I say this badly and still get credit for trying?" Claire exhaled and dropped her arms. "You were already reading my private thoughts. I think we're past graceful." That was very Claire, and hearing it made this easier somehow. "The line about pretending," I said, "hit me because I think I've been doing the same thing, just without a journal." She went quiet. I kept going before I lost the nerve. I've spent a long time calling you my best friend like that, explained everything. Like that was the whole story." I glanced at the book still stacked all over her rug and gave a helpless little laugh. "Meanwhile, I'm here every Sunday. I know where your spare key is. Your dog likes me more than he should. And every girl I've dated has felt temporary in a way you never have." Claire didn't move. Neither did I. The only sound in the room was Basil snoring against the couch cushion, like he was personally offended by emotional tension. Her voice, when it came, was very quiet. "So why didn't you say anything?" That answer was easy. "Because you mattered too much." She looked down at that, then back up. "I thought if I got it wrong, I'd lose the one person in my life that never felt uncertain." I held her gaze. "And so I did the smart thing and acted dumb." Claire's mouth twitched again. "That does sound like you." "I know." This time she did smile, barely. It changed everything. Because once she smiled, the room stopped feeling like a disaster and started feeling like something honest. Delicate, maybe, but honest. She stepped closer too until the space between us felt intentional. You really mean that? She asked. Yes. Not polished, not dramatic, just true. I saw her believe me in pieces, in the way her shoulders eased, in the way her eyes stopped looking for the exit, in the way her voice softened when she said, I wrote that after your birthday. I frowned. My birthday? She nodded. You were so busy making sure everyone else had a good time that you barely sat down once. Then after everybody left, you stayed and helped me clean the kitchen even though it was your party. She gave a small, embarrassed shrug. You were standing there drying plates and smiling at me like it was the easiest place in the world to be. And I went home and wrote that I was in trouble. That landed somewhere deep. Because I remembered that night. I remembered her in my kitchen, hair falling out of the clip she always swore worked, sleeves pushed up, looking more like home than anything else in the room. I should have known, I said. You should have, she agreed, then added quieter, but I also got good at not saying it out loud. I smiled. Not good enough, apparently. She groaned and looked at the journal. I cannot believe Basil is the one who broke me. He's had a long campaign. That made her laugh, real this time, and the sound of it pulled the last bit of tension out of my chest. Now that she was laughing, now that we were both still standing here and nothing had shattered, the truth felt almost simple. I reached for her hand, not fast, not like a question I was afraid of, just carefully. She let me take it right away. I don't want to pretend either, I said. Claire looked at our hands for a second, then back at me. That's a dangerous sentence? Probably. And if I ask what exactly you mean? I stepped in close enough to answer without raising my voice. I mean, I'm done acting like you're just the person I call first, look for first, trust first. I smiled a little. I mean, if your journal hadn't beaten me to it, I still would have gotten here eventually, just with less dignity. Her eyes warmed at that. Eventually? I was trying not to be reckless. Noah, she said softly, you alphabetized my spice drawer last month. That was an act of service. That was nesting. I laughed so suddenly I had to look away for a second. When I looked back, she was still smiling, and there was so much fondness in it that it almost knocked the rest of the air out of me. Then she asked, So, what happens now? I lifted my free hand to her cheek and gave her plenty of time to decide. She leaned into it before I even finished touching her. That was my answer. I kissed her. Not dramatically, not like something wild had happened. It felt quiet and overdue and exactly right, like the room had finally stopped holding its breath. When we pulled back, Claire rested her forehead lightly against mine and laughed under hers. Basil is going to be unbearable about this, she murmured. He already thinks he did all the work. He kind of did. We stayed there like that for another second, hands linked, her journal still on the table beside us, the one place I had never meant to look, and somehow the place that told me the truth I'd been avoiding anyway. A week later, the shelves were finally organized. Claire claimed my system made no sense. I said her categories were emotionally manipulative, and Basil still climbed into my lap like he'd won custody. The difference was that now, when Claire looked at me across the room with that private little smile she usually saved for moments nobody else would understand, I didn't have to file it under friendship and move on. I could finally call it what it was. So tell me,